So we exported that data out of there, combined it with a couple of the client's other proprietary data sources, and help them create ideal customer profiles for every segment of their market based on what the audience likes, like what their interests are, like movies and shopping and TV, certain types of TV shows, certain types of music, etc. And made this available to them so that their marketing teams can now effectively do synthetic focus groups where they can talk to a persona and get real answers about, like, what should we change in this email that's going to go out to X million people? What can we change in this email that will get higher click-through rates, that will get, more interest in things? And so we rolled this out. And the part that astonished the client was that they were going to do this a different way. It was going to be a 12-month project. And we're like, pretty sure we can help you out there. So we spun up a new scope of work to work with them. And the initial customer profiles were done in 10 days.
Welcome to AI and Marketing Unpacked, where we simplify AI for impactful marketing. I'm your host, Mike Alden, here to guide you through the world of artificial intelligence and its transformative impact on marketing strategies. Each episode will break down AI concepts into manageable insights and explore practical applications that can supercharge your marketing efforts. Whether you're an experienced marketer or just starting to explore the potential of AI, this podcast will equip you with the knowledge and tools you need to succeed. So tune in and let's unlock the power of AI together. Greetings, program. Welcome back to AI and Marketing Unpacked, where I selfishly use this time to pick the brains of experts at keeping up with and integrating or layering artificial intelligence into social media, content, advertising, search, and other areas. Digital marketing. Oh, and you get to learn too. Subscribe to learn how to prepare yourself and your brand for this AI revolution and come out ahead. Now, many marketers today recognize the potential of AI, but they're not sure how to start integrating it into their strategies. Challenge can be daunting. How do you effectively introduce AI into your existing workflows? Choose the right tools and ensure your team is equipped to leverage it in all of its capabilities. Moreover, with myriad options available, understanding where to begin and how to navigate the pitfalls can seem overwhelming. Today, we're tackling those questions with the help of Christopher Penn, a renowned expert in AI and data-driven marketing. Chris brings invaluable insights from his extensive experience with AI implementations in various business contexts. With his deep knowledge in both the technical and strategic aspects of AI, he'll share practical strategies and real-world examples to help you pave the way for AI integration in your marketing efforts, making the process more manageable and effective. Chris is going to walk us through the crucial steps to get started, how to select the right AI tools for your needs, and the importance of team training and upskilling. We'll also delve into common challenges and how to measure the success of your AI initiatives. By the end of this episode, you'll have a clear roadmap for integrating AI into your marketing strategy, ensuring that your business is not only preparing for the future, but leading the charge in innovation. Hey, Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So excited to jump into this with you. I know we're going to cover a lot of ground today, but to start, can you tell us about your journey into AI and what led you to focus on this intersection of technologies?
Sure. So I think before we do that, we should even talk about what AI is, because there's three major branches of it. There's regression, there's classification, and there's generation. Now, we like to use the acronym FOG: find, organize, and generate. Uh, the first two, find and organize, they're what we call classical AI. So this is stuff that is as old as, like, it goes back to the 1950s. We're talking, and marketers would know as things like uplift modeling, marketing mix modeling, attribution. That's sort of regression based generative AI or classical AI. Organized classification is, hey, I've got all this data. I've got, a gazillion and a half social media posts. Help me categorize, put them in topics, bucket them, and things like that. So organizing your data. And again, marketers have seen that even as something simple as like a word cloud, like that is classification. The third branch is generation, which uses the technologies of regression and classification to make stuff, to have AI make things. So in terms of my journey, I started in marketing technology in the early 2000s at a financial services startup. And then in 2005, Google bought this company called Urchin, which then they rebranded and started giving away as a service called Google Analytics. In 2012, I left the company I was at to go into a PR firm because they were having some really challenging measurement problems. Like, how do you measure the impact of PR when there's nothing to click on? And part of that was going from straight statistics into data science and machine learning, classical AI, to resolve, okay, how do we solve this problem mathematically? And that was my first introduction to what we now call AI. So 2012, 2013, that's when I started doing a lot of coding in R, a lot of statistical stuff, a lot of data science stuff. And then, of course, in 2017, my account director at the time and I decided we saw where classical AI was going. Like, there's legs to this thing, and the PR firm was going in a different direction, and so we parted ways, and we decided to switch things up. And so Katie Robert and I co-founded Trust Insights, and we launched in 2018. And our focus has been on analytics, data science, and AI, and that's where we are now. And of course, in November 22, OpenAI pivots what then was its GPT-3 model into that was in the playground into production with a model called Instruct GPT. And we all, the general population, had learned about it through a service called Chat GPT. And then suddenly everyone's an AI expert.
Suddenly overnight, right?
Mhm.
But I appreciate you sharing that because we've known each other for a long time. I think I met you in person 2016, 2017, something like that. 2015, content marketing
Mhm.
role. And I even to that point, I did not realize how invested you were in the concepts of AI so long ago. Because to your point, a lot of us, and myself included, have pivoted into AI extremely recently, like within the matter of days for some of us. This has been your playground for a while.
Yes, this has been the thing about machine learning and artificial intelligence is that when you take away all the hype, all of these things are just prediction engines based in probability. And if you understand the architecture of how these systems work, you can make them work better. I mean, that's fundamentally uh, when you look, for example, at the inside workings of a transformer-based model, like the ones that power ChatGPT, and you read the academic papers on the stuff, you start learning about the architectural features under the hood. And the analogy I liken to is a blender. Most people know what a blender is, and they know what you should put in it, what you shouldn't put in it. Like if you're making steak, wrong tool. But that's about it. A certain subset of people know that a blender is actually an electromagnet. There's electricity, there's wires, copper coils that drives an axle that blends things. And they can take it apart. They can understand, okay, well, the blender's not working. Well, here's why. This part of the drivetrain is broken. Um, when we think about AI and maximizing performance, and to your point, integrating it into marketing, into enterprises, you've got to go from I know what to do with the blender to can I fix the blender if it breaks? How should blenders be rolled out across our company? Who should be allowed access to the blender? Right? Like, don't give access to the person who's going to stick their hand in there. Um, and knowing when is the blender the right tool. So there's a lot of that goes into these things. And then how do you make the blender part of the workflow? How do you connect other tools to the blender? How do you take the outputs of the blender and use them? For example, if you're making steak and you want to tenderize a steak, take a blender, take some pineapple, blend that pineapple up, put it on the steak, and let it sit for an hour, and you'll have really tenderized steak because the bromelain inside pineapple actually digests some meat proteins. Pineapple is the only food that when you eat it, it eats you.
Okay. This is an analogy that can be applied in a lot of different ways, but I appreciate the reminder that people are at different stages of understanding this technology because it's something I have to constantly remind myself when I'm talking to my audiences. I studied computer science in college, and I used to be in IT sales. So I'm watching, Jensen's keynote address for the NVIDIA Developer Conference, and I was understanding virtually everything he was talking about with chips and semiconductors, all those kinds of things, but not everybody else understands that, not everybody else needs to. So those of you listening, you don't necessarily need to understand all of these things, but Chris's analogy is perfect. You need to understand what the blender is, how it works, when to use it. So let's get into that, right? What are some of those first steps that a business should take when they're kind of considering integrating AI specifically into their marketing strategy?
So, unsurprisingly, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. We have a whole framework for this. So, my company Trust Insights, we do this literally as consulting. So, the base of the framework is purpose. Why are you doing it? Right? What is the business purpose for doing something? Because a lot of the times, and this is especially true any hype cycle, there's a lot of people like we've got to use AI. why, right? What are you trying to do? What's the business outcome you're trying to do? And then at the top of this is what are you going to use to measure that AI was the right choice, right? If you don't have those two bookends, it's like a sandwich, like it's like a BLT, but you don't have the bread. It's like, okay, I've got a salad, right? I want a sandwich, a salad. This sucks. Even if the salad has bacon in it, it's not what you wanted. And so you got to have those first few parts down. And anytime you're thinking about AI applications, you've got to have your purpose. You've got to have a system of measurement that tells you that you did the thing. Generally speaking, with any form of AI, you're looking for one of three key outcomes: save time, save money, or make money, right? And that's it. Like if you can't connect the project, the idea, the use case to save time, save money, make money, it's DOA. It should be, because you're just going to waste a whole bunch of time. Now, if your job is R&D, totally different. Then it's like, what can we learn? But even there, what can we learn? It still should have some line of sight to save time, save money, make money. So that's the first part. Second part is there's sort of a hierarchy of the use cases for AI, which is the process column. There's at the very baseline, individual prompting and usage. Hey, we're using ChatGPT, right? That's pretty much like 98, 99% of people are there today. And that's fine. Individual employees, consumer AI interfaces like ChatGPT, that's where you got to start, because you need people to buy into it. You need executives to see, okay, it's not going to end my company immediately, right? And building that sort of comfort. The second level, systematized prompt management. Now we're starting to talk about scaling things, right? So instead of you using ChatGPT on an island of your own, you and your team have some sort of knowledge management software, some kind of knowledge management store. There's some project management around that. So, hey, we're going to use this to generate content. We're going to use this to process customer complaints. We're going to use this to analyze strategy. Whatever the thing is, you're now starting to have that systematization of your prompting, maybe some of your data sets a little bit. Your third level is now starting to simplify the UI and standardize. Now we're talking about uh, building interfaces around these things. So, for example, custom GPTs in ChatGPT, where you can build a purpose-built tool. You simplify what people have to do in order to interact with an application. Your fourth level of advancement is we're building APIs and full apps. Google Vertex, for example, where you're going to build a chat bot that internally is in your Slack. And like, for example, the one thing we do, we just did this for a customer. We built an ideal customer profile, synthesized all the data, built an ideal customer profile, and then put it into a Vertex chatbot in Slack. So now when marketing goes, I wonder what the customer would think of this. You talk to, I think we called ours Emily Thompson. You just chat at her in Slack and say, Emily, what do you think of this email that's about to go out? How would you feel as a customer? And she goes, it doesn't really appeal to me. And they say, okay, well, what would appeal to you? Well, maybe she said it like this. And for people, that's now you're taking away generative AI as a thing you have to do and making it available to somebody as a service, right? You're building a service like, okay, I can talk to this person. After that, you start getting into data engineering. Like, what data do you have as a company that you can leverage in these tools to make better personas, to make better strategies, et cetera? The second to the highest level is fine-tuning custom models. You found that one thing that is so mission critical that you're gonna build your own AI around it. And at the height of your evolution, AI is everywhere, and it's like electricity. You don't even think about it anymore. It's just part and parcel of you as a company. So the framework for how do we think about rolling out AI, integrating into our marketing looks like this. And you can see in the people column, it's not just marketing. If you want this to succeed, you're talking about integration across multiple departments. If you look at the platform, they're talking about integration across multiple tools. You cannot, no marketing team, no marketing department can fully see the benefits of generative AI without collaboration.
And just as a quick note to those of you listening, we'll have the links to everything that Chris is talking about and these slides in the show notes. If you're listening on your phone, we'll have that for you. But a couple things that you said that really stood out to me. First, I love the use case of having that Slack integration. I've been imagining something a little bit similar for our sales team at Agorapulse. We have a tremendous wealth of resources, blog posts, podcasts, video snippets, and so on that speak to specific pain points that our target audiences are going through, and we want to equip our sales team with those resources. But once you pass like 10 links, it becomes a little complex and almost impossible for an individual AE to remember everything that we've ever created on every platform that might speak to any potential pain point. And so I'm thinking, well, this is perfect for AI. And I don't know if that Slack integration or that Vertex, what was it that you
So it's Google's Vertex AI Studio
Google's
is
Vertex?
the environment that you build that in.
Yeah, and you think that would probably be a good platform for that kind of a solution as well?
Maybe. It
Maybe.
depends on your sales team. It depends on your sales CRM and infrastructure because obviously different CRMs have different capabilities, right? HubSpot
Mm,
has ChatSpot, Salesforce has Einstein. Everybody and their cousin, to some degree appropriately, is trying to figure out how do you integrate generative AI and natural language prompting in complex software because that's a heck of a lot easier to, when we show this to, sales executives, we say, "Hey, which would you prefer to do? 28 clicks to get to your dashboard for your pipeline, or go to ChatSpot and say, what's my sales pipeline look like today?" Right. And it just answers, here's sales pipeline. That's so much more natural for people.
that's a really great insight. We are using both HubSpot and Salesforce, but I'm pretty sure the sales team is focused on the Salesforce side. So we'll have to look into using Einstein. But that leads me to my next question. With all these tools that are not only being created as AI powered tools, but like in this case, Salesforce, they're integrating AI into every aspect of the tool. How do businesses go about approaching and selecting the right AI tools or platforms for their specific needs?
Well, unsurprisingly, this framework is your blueprint for that because if you know where you are and you know where you want to go, you can then start doing formal requirements gathering to ask, okay, what what do we want to be able to do? Right. So one of the biggest challenges with artificial intelligence, particularly generative AI and language models, is that language. Name a single function in your company that does not use language. Right? There isn't. It is literally how we communicate as human beings. And as a result, anything that is language is an opportunity to use a language model to do. So the use cases are literally infinite. There's no shortage of them. Um, in terms of the technology is what you select last. You've got to have who are the people involved, what are the processes that are in place right now. There is, let me go find it real quick. Over on our website, we have a framework that we call TRIPS, and it stands for it's a free download you can get there's not even a form to fill out because we're trying to share as much basic stuff about AI as we can. So the TRIPS framework is this: 5 categories that you score any given AI task or any AI given task as to whether it should be AI or not. Number 1, time. How much time does the task consume? Updating Salesforce takes a lot of time, right? That's a big one. 2, how repetitive is the task? Salespeople have to update their CRM, right? As something you do, you're supposed to do it every day. Most SDRs and stuff will do it like once a week, maybe, right? But it's highly repetitive. 3, how important is the task? This is one's a bit of a mental twist. The less important the task is, the better, because the more important it is, the more it's going to likely need human review, right? You don't, there's a bunch of tasks you just don't want to hand off to a machine, just walk away from. Number 4, how pleasant is the task? Who loves updating Salesforce? No one, right? So the
Yeah.
less pleasant the task is, the more candidates for AI. And 5th, do you have examples of how the task is supposed to be done? How many examples do you have? The more examples you have, the better. That's sufficient data. So this TRIPS framework is a way to do your look at your processes, score your processes, and then once you've done that, you basically have the requirements. You can say, okay, well now we need to find a vendor that will do these sets of tasks, and here's how the task works, and here's how we do it right now. Vendor, show me how you will your tool maps to this. And if you want to get fancy, you build your requirements document, right? Any BRD, anyone who's ever done a BRD, business requirements document, you want to flesh that out. Here's like what, must have, nice to have, don't want, etc. And that all goes in there. Then you get clever. You go to a tool like Google's Gemini or Anthropic Claude 3 and say, here's my business requirements. Build me a scoring rubric for this of how to assess it. And then you issue your RFP. And then you get the vendor RFP responses and you say, score each RFP according to my rubric for my requirements. And let's build a short list of which vendors satisfy the requirements. And you will dramatically speed up the joy of RFPs, um, and select a vendor that matches the requirements.
I love that idea. We're talking about a new tool selection here at Agorapulse, and not AI related, the tool itself, but the process that we're going to go through. You just outlined. I think it's going to save us a lot of time. And you reminded me of this fantastic meme that's going around where the woman says, "I don't need AI to create images and write for me. I need AI to do my laundry and do my dishes." Speaking to the things that are unpleasant that we don't want to do, that we love for systems like AI to take over. But you also have me wondering, when you're talking to businesses about how they're integrating AI, this seems like something that not only should people be talking to about, but there should be someone who's actually making decisions on behalf of the company, on behalf of departments. Are you seeing clarity in who those individuals should be within organizations?
Who they should be and who they actually are two different stories. Who they should
Yes.
be is your AI task force, right? So you would have an AI task force of stakeholders from three different levels in your organization. You have your executives, you have your management, and you have your staff. And you have, so that's through sort of the horizontals, if you can broadly imagine that in your organization. And then you have your verticals: HR, finance, marketing, sales. Ideally, your task force has one person from each level in each vertical, so that as a collaborative team to say, like, this is what we want to do with this technology. Everyone do your trips framework. Everyone outline all your tasks. Let's gather up all of our information and figure out what are the priorities of the organization. What things are just time sucks, right? I worked at a PR firm. There was this one position, account coordinator at the firm. That person's job was to copy and paste Google search results into a spreadsheet for clients 40 hours a week. That is a massive time suck. That is a waste of human potential. That doesn't even need AI. Like, that's just basic API automation, but they did not have the capacity to do that. With generative AI, you can write the code. I would not be a coder, write the code to do that, run the code, and then remove that mind numbing, unpleasant task and get that human skilled up on, like, client relations. Like, who among all of us would not want more attention and better service from our vendors, right? To have someone who will answer the phone when we call. Well, if you free up people from doing boring shit like that and, copy pasting all day, when you pick up the phone, they can, someone can answer.
Absolutely. And so I think we touched right there on one of the major challenges facing businesses is, who do they tap? How do they organize that? They're struggling with that. Individuals within the organization are making decisions for themselves without any kind of oversight or communication or education on the basics of AI tools, let alone anything that's a little more complex in terms of how it's going to benefit the business. But what other challenges are you seeing businesses face when it comes to implementing AI?
There's a bunch. So the challenges, again, go back to people, process, and platform. Platform is almost never the challenge. Um, well, actually, that's not true. A lot of companies they don't have a good understanding of what the foundation tools like ChatGPT or Claude or Google Gemini, what they're capable of. So they end up buying a whole bunch of software from a whole bunch of vendors that promise them magic. And the reality is, 80% of the tasks that you can do for using generative AI, you can do with a foundation tool, right? You don't need to buy a vendor's tool. You certainly don't need to buy a vendor's tool to write blog posts, right? That is a complete waste of money. Um, so that's a big part, is understanding what the technology is capable of on the platform side. But the bigger obstacles are people and process. So with process, what data do you have? Where is it? What condition is it in? Can you use it? Um, and there's not a whole companies don't really have a good handle on, they have not had a handle on that ever. Um, One of the things my co-founder, Katie, says often is that new technology doesn't solve old problems, particularly when the problems are people. Take something like sales executives, right? Sales executives don't like updating Salesforce. This is not a new problem, and no amount of technology is going to solve it. You can have things that are easier, right? You can say, okay, hey, you know what? Instead of updating Salesforce, just leave me a voicemail. and we'll have AI transcribe it, move that into Salesforce. But at the same time, you still have to get that person to want to update Salesforce. Um, and there's a variety of incentives and things that you have, but that's not a technology problem. That's not an AI problem. That is a you hired a recalcitrant person problem. Um, and that is the challenge across the board when it comes to AI integration and AI in general is some people assume it's magic. It's not magic. It's a prediction engine. Some people assume that it's going to take their job, and about 40% of people are correct. And some people assume that the technology is just all hype, and that's also incorrect. So
Yeah.
there's a wide spectrum of less correct beliefs about the technology. And the critical thing that companies should be doing is understanding what the technology is and is not capable of, identifying people within the organization who are already using it. Hint, it's three-quarters of your organization. Um, at least according to the Microsoft 2024 Work Trend Index report, three-quarters of employees are using it with or without permission, which means that your corporate data is leaking out to other places. Data security and data privacy are obviously considerations. So you need to be thinking about governance, how you're going to govern not just the use of AI, but use of your data with AI. And then there's the legal side of things. What can you and can you not use
Yeah.
AI for? For example, uh, it is i- almost across the globe, in most countries, under the law, machine generated content cannot be copyrighted, right? Because a machine made it. In the US, a 2018 case, Naruto versus Slater, a chimpanzee took a selfie. This went to court. The photographer tried to copyright. This went to court, and the court ruled the chimp did the work, not the human. And chimps can't hold copyright because they can't defend it in court because they're chimps. And therefore, this picture is in the public domain. It cannot be copyrighted. This has been extended to AI. ChatGPT will not show up in court to defend itself. And so machine generated content can't be copyrighted. If you are a company, say that you're a marketing agency, and in your contracts it says you all work you provide is work for hire, and you assign copyrights to the client. You cannot assign a copyright to a document that does not have copyright. You are technically in breach of contract. So you need to have a sit down with your legal team. You need to have to sit down with your clients. You have to sit down and explain like here's what's inbounds and out of bounds. It is probably a perfectly okay use case for your monthly summary of your marketing activities to be AI generated because you hand that to the client. They're not going to put it on their website, right? It's an internal document, totally fine use case. You hand an ebook that you wrote with AI, and the client puts it up on their website. It's very obviously written by machine. The competitor steals that. The client tries to sue, and the competitor says, "This is AI generated. You can't sue me because there's no copyright." Now you've put your client in a hot spot. So all of these are considerations that challenge companies when they're thinking about integrating AI into their workflows. That you need to have a good task force that is familiar with the issues so that they know what to do about it.
Fantastic example of why that is so important. And it's funny you said AI is not magic. Arthur C. Clarke might argue that it's sufficiently advanced technology to appear as magic to many of us. So, give us an example of a use of AI in marketing that perhaps you've been involved with that's been very successful and honestly might even appear magical to some.
So recently, at one of our clients, they needed to have a way for their marketing team and their market research team to be able to efficiently understand the needs of their customers. It's a big B2C company, and they said we have data here somewhere. We don't know where. We don't know what we have. Um, and I said, great. Do you have Google Analytics? They're like, yes, we do somewhere. Um, so after a little bit of poking around, we were able to get access to Google Analytics. And what a lot of people don't know is that inside Google Analytics, thanks to Google's ad systems, you can get things like demographic data about your audiences, get what they're interested in, their interests and affinities and stuff. So we exported that data out of there, combined it with a couple of the client's other proprietary data sources, and help them create ideal customer profiles for every segment of their market based on what the audience likes, like what their interests are, like movies and shopping and TV, certain types of TV shows, certain types of music, etc. And made this available to them so that they can then, their marketing teams can now effectively do synthetic focus groups where they can talk to a persona that is assembled by generative AI from their proprietary data plus Google's data and get real answers about like what should we change in this email that's going to go out to X million people? What can we change in this email that will get higher click-through rates, that will get, more interest in things? And so we rolled this out. And the part that astonished the client was that this was they were going to do this a different way. It was going to be a 12-month project. And we're like, pretty sure we can help you out there. So we spun up a new scope of work and to work with them. And the initial customer profiles were done in 10 days.
Wow. Anyone who has waited and waited and waited for the department of the company to create those kinds of ICPs can relate to the stunned factor of that particular project. That's amazing.
It was a
That's
lot of fun.
really cool. Yeah, I bet, and I'm sure they were pleased, and I've seen, to your point earlier, I've seen lots of tools and startups claim to be able to create ICPs for companies. They're talking about bringing in data from across the web, but it's not personalized to that company. They're not looking at that particular company's analytics and analyzing it the way that you just described. It's just general, if I'm in this industry and I'm this kind of business, who am I talking to? And, that's nice, but I think it's so much more powerful if they're using the actual data that's available to them.
And here's the thing. This is something I end my keynotes with. There's two things that will set you apart in success for in all forms of AI, but generative AI especially. Number one is the quality and quantity of your ideas. These tools are skill levelers, right? They can help. There's a study from BCG and Wharton last summer that showed that when given AI, to 700 consultants, the people in the AI test group who were in the low 50%, the underperformers, when they used generative AI, they scored higher on 14 separate tasks than the top 50% high performers. So turned low performers into high performers in 5 hours. Right? That is a huge performance jump. And so when we're looking at these, successful integrations and things, it really is just about getting people to understand what's possible. So there's skill levels. There's skill levels, which means that one of the big differentiators is the quality and quantity of your ideas. Whoever has the most best ideas will win because generative AI will do the actual work. The second key differentiating factor that will make or break your AI efforts is particularly in marketing is whoever has the most best data. If you go into a tool like Gemini or ChatGPT and you say, let's write a blog post. I'll do a very pedestrian example. Let's write a blog post. And you give it an outline and it does the thing. You're like, okay, great. I wrote the outline. That was cool. If, on the other hand, you had, say, 28 academic papers on the topic, you could bring those in, merge them together, synthesize an outline based on that specific data, and create something that is so unique and compelling. I did this last weekend for fun. I
Of course you
I
did.
was I saw a post on LinkedIn that really pissed me off. It was this LinkedIn guru, learn the 7 secret hacks that should be illegal on LinkedIn. Like, oh, this is bullshit. And so I went into LinkedIn's engineering blog. I extracted 70 blog posts from their engineers that they openly talk about how the LinkedIn algorithm works, like the different technologies. I went to archive and I pulled 28 academic papers that LinkedIn engineers had submitted to different conferences about how they use AI at LinkedIn and how their systems work. I pulled several interviews with Tim Yerker, their head of engineering, that he's done on various podcasts like This Week in Marketing and AI, This Week in Machine Learning and AI. I grabbed all this information, shoved it into Gemini. It was like 700,000 words, give or take. And I said, from all this, synthesize how LinkedIn's algorithm actually works. And it did a great job. I said, okay, show me all the technologies first. I said, now I post something on LinkedIn. Walk me through every single step of what happens to that post on LinkedIn, what system interacts with how it scores, how it rates and stuff like that. And it did that and said, okay, great. Now you're going to give me a basic LinkedIn marketing strategy to increase the visibility of my content in the LinkedIn newsfeed. And it spit out a nice outline. I said, great. Now I want you to give me an intermediate one. Don't show me anything that's already in the basics. Show me the intermediate stuff, and gave me a new series of recommendations. I said, great. Now let's assume I'm a really advanced user. Don't show me anything that you show me in basic and intermediate. Show me just the advanced stuff. And it gave me some very tactical things to do with LinkedIn. And I suddenly had a 20-page book on how LinkedIn works. We're actually giving you're giving this away. It's on the Trust Insights website if you want to grab a copy of it. It's totally free. Then, because I love poking the bear, I went to YouTube and I grabbed 20 different videos from the so-called LinkedIn gurus, the secrets you need to know. I grabbed all the closed captions for all those videos. I put them into Gemini too. And I said, now compare and contrast the advice that the gurus are giving with what LinkedIn engineering actually said. And there's a long document that I sent to some friends who work at LinkedIn to say, anytime you see one of these gurus spouting off, feel free to slap them with, and here's how you're wrong about how LinkedIn actually works. Because it turns out there is no such thing as the LinkedIn algorithm. There's 13 separate independent AI systems that all work together to decide what is shown in the news feed. So your so-called hack really is, any results you're getting are mostly coincidence. And oh, by the way, just like Facebook, LinkedIn recompiles its algorithm on like an hourly basis across its 13 petabyte servers that are keep the entire network graph in memory and synchronized across the planet. Um, like the whole system is astonishing in how advanced it is and how fast it is. And these so-called gurus understand none of it. And that's an example of how people should be thinking about using these tools. Like that is an advantage. If you know where the data is and you can have these tools synthesize it and find connections in them that you can't find because my brain can't keep 700,000 words of information in memory all at once. These tools can do that. It's incredible. And it's such a powerful advantage for you as a company. So long story short, the quality and quantity of your ideas will make you win with AI, and the quality and quantity of your data that you bring to the party will make you win with AI.
Yeah, and it's fantastic how these tools are getting stronger and better and more powerful every single day. We again, throw back to that NVIDIA keynote. We saw that their processing power that we're going to have at our fingertips, literally within a matter of months, as these new chips get rolled out, are going to be phenomenal. And I appreciate you sharing a couple of use cases and stories because that's one of my purposes with this show. Those of you listening, stick around because you're going to hear so many of those kinds of use cases in the future episodes. And I think that's how we're all going to expand our understanding of what's out there, what's possible. Folks, we're talking with Chris Penn about integrating AI into your marketing. And there's one question coming up in particular that you're not going to want to miss. But first, let me share with you the tool that I've been using to help me integrate AI into all of my most important tasks. This episode of AI and Marketing Unpacked is brought to you by Magi, your gateway to making generative AI incredibly simple and accessible. Wondering how to seamlessly integrate AI into your marketing strategy without getting bogged down by complexities? That's exactly where Magi shine. It provides user-friendly AI solutions that empower marketers just like you to innovate and elevate your campaigns without needing a degree in data science. Imagine having the power to generate creative content, insightful marketing data analysis, or even personalized customer communication. It's all at the touch of a button. Magi isn't just about providing tools. It's about transforming your approach to marketing with AI that's tailor-made to be straightforward and effective. So whether you're looking to boost your content creation process or want deeper insights into your marketing performance, Magi makes it all possible with a few clicks. No fuss, no hassle, just results. Ready to simplify your AI journey? Visit Magi today to learn how their solutions can revolutionize the way you engage with your audience. Don't just market smarter with Magi. Tap the link in the show notes. So, Chris, how can marketers ensure that their AI initiatives align with their overall marketing goals and strategy?
It comes back down to that 5P framework that Katie invented. If you haven't figured out what the purpose is that's aligned with those goals, then yeah, your AI initiative is going to go nowhere because at some point someone's going to say, what are we spending all this time and money on? And what do you have to show for it? If you start out by saying, we are going to take the role of account coordinator and free up 40 hours a week and free up that person, then when you do that with AI, people are like, wow, you did it. Good job. Right. So you have to be clear on the purpose and performance of any project, not just AI, but any project up front so that you know what you're trying to get at. And the easiest way to do that is through having your stakeholders build a user story. And again, this is something that Katie talks about all the time. A user story is a real simple three-part Mad Lib. As your role, I need to a task so that outcome, right? If you can have stakeholders or anyone fill out these Mad Libs and, for every task that they have, it becomes abundantly clear what the purpose is and how you're going to measure the outcome. As a content marketer, I need to write 1,500 word blog posts in less than 5 hours each so that I'm not spending my entire day and part of my evenings writing content for my website, right? Just with that statement alone, you go, okay, well, our measure of success is going to be how much time it takes you to write a blog post. Um, there isn't anything mentioned there about quality, but we probably might want to ask about that.
Yeah.
You might want to say so that I write better ranking blog posts in less than 5 hours. Um, it becomes clear what the task is, what the process is, right? It's a writing process. We know who's involved, which is you. And suddenly, by writing out that Mad Lib, you understand how AI is going to play a role, right? Because AI is going to maybe do the first draft or the outline or help you brainstorm or maybe even do the second draft or do some developmental editing. Whatever the task is within the writing process where you're getting bogged down, that's where the machine is going to step in and help you with that task. That's how you achieve alignment. The very worst thing you can possibly do is start with AI, right? And say, let's use AI for something. Like it's like, let's use a blender for something. Well, that's a bit ambiguous, right? If you're making soup, sure. If you're making steak, no. But if you don't know what you're making, it's like, I'm just going to blend things. It's not going to go well. Your goldfish might be very unhappy with you. So that's the straightforward answer. Know what your purpose and performance is first, then figure out the other stuff and do the AI part last.
That makes a lot of sense. It was kind of how I approached podcasting. Those of you listening may or may not know, I now have 6 podcasts that I'm hosting, and I was typically spending an hour or 2 preparing for each and every episode. Now, with the help of AI, bringing in research on the guests, it's helping me craft questions, understand what they're really going to want to talk about and what they're excellent at. This show's a perfect example. I'm using a custom GPT for every single show now to build out my pre-show document, which I share with the guests. And it's, whittled that time down to a half an hour or less.
Mhm.
It's incredible how much time that saved, which I can now devote to finding more guests and all the other things that are important to my role. But you talked about the cost, and I want to touch on that because some of the people listening might be concerned about or hesitant about the cost and the complexity of integrating AI. What advice would you share with them?
Again, it goes back to understanding the purpose and the performance, right? What is 4 hours a week worth, right? What is your bill rate? If your bill rate's $300 an hour, if you can save 4 hours a week, that's $1,200 saved. And that's pretty good ROI. Even if your bill rate's like $10 an hour, right? That's still $40 of time that you didn't burn on a task that you had a machine do. So that's a big part is understanding what anytime someone talks about ROI and cost, you have to take into account ROI is a financial formula: earn minus spent divided by spent. So you can either earn more or spend less. When it comes to AI, particularly the opportunities for the use of AI, it's usually going to be on the spend less side, right? So you can spend less time because time isn't money, but time equates to money, and people spend money to buy time. That's what you're doing with AI. So if you can use the tools to buy yourself more time by automating things or increase the quality of your work, then the cost almost is irrelevant as long as there's a clear financial impact on the earned side. So, for example, you're talking about how you'd like to develop questions for guests. One of the things that the show Hot Ones does. Now they use humans to do this. I would not use humans to do this. But they really strive to do deep cuts and ask questions that other people don't ask. One of the things that pretty much every show does is they kind of tend to ask the same general questions. One of the things that a clever podcaster with the power of AI could do is go to YouTube, grab every guest interview that you can find of that person, grab the captions files from all those videos, and then put that into a tool like Gemini and say, here's all the interviews that this person has done. Go through them all. What questions on this topic has this person not been asked? And you will come up with really good questions, insightful questions, challenging questions that will make the person go, huh, no one's ever asked me that before, right? And that is it's an example of how do you use these tools to increase quality, right? So you now we're on the other side of ROI. If the show is more compelling, the guest is like, that was a really good interview. I will spend some time maybe sharing that because I got asked questions I've never been asked before. Um, and for the listeners, it'll be oh, it's not the same old, oh God, it's Chris again. He's going to say the same 8 things he said on the last 22 shows he's been on. Like, this is, now, oh, that's different. That's a question no one's ever heard before. That's an answer no one's ever heard before. That's pretty cool.
I love that. First of all, it's a topic that Andy Christina, who was a previous guest on the show, was talking about from a different perspective. He was talking about content gap analysis, and he made the point cleverly that as humans, it's really hard for us to identify what's missing or what's not there. AI, that's no problem whatsoever. And when it comes to podcasting specifically, I've done what you've suggested, right? I've done the research. I had Rory Sutherland on a show a few years ago, and Rory's amazing. His mind is intense and a wealth of information, we'll put it that way. And he's been interviewed hundreds and hundreds of times. And so to find a question that he's never been asked before would not only be interesting to your point, to the audience, but again, to your point, would be incredibly powerful in building a relationship and rapport with Rory. And I did that. And it took me days to sort out and listen and analyze all the different interviews he's been on, talking about agencies. He works for Ogilvy, who those of you maybe don't know him. That was an intense project. It's not something I could even remotely think about duplicating ever again for most of the guests when, as I said, I'm interviewing for 6 shows a week. But you're right, with
What if
AI,
I told you you
so
could do
easy.
that in 10 minutes or less?
Yeah, yeah.
No, I'm serious.
With
Like, what if I
AI,
told you you can do that in 10 minutes or less?
but absolutely do that.
So let me show you. Let's do a quick walkthrough. Let's go to, I'm going to share my screen
Yep.
here. Let's go to YouTube. Let's do Christopher Penn interview, right? And we're going to find people who are not the dead actor. So we have a bunch of these things. So you would essentially go through and grab all these URLs. So let's go through, and I'm going to just do a sample, a few examples here. And I have a tool called OpenList, which just captures the URLs in your browser tab. Right? That's all that does. Very straightforward. We take those URLs, we put them into a good old fashioned text file. And we'll call this Chris Interviews. Now, there is a free open source tool called YTDLP, YouTube Downloader. And what this tool does is, if you're familiar with the command line, it allows you to grab resources from YouTube. One of the things you can do is have it grab only the captions files. So let's put this in here. So it's going to go through and grab every single one of these captions files and store them on the desktop there. These captions files are something that generative AI is perfectly capable of reading. So we've got looks like we got 8 or 9 here. So let's now go into Google's AI Studio. Let's go into a new prompt here. So we're going to do some analysis of interviews. I'm going to provide you with VTT captions files. What do you know about reading VTT files? So we're going to prime the model.
Right.
I'm going to change the pro model instead of the flash model because flash is dumb as a bag of hammers. I'm going to turn off all the safeties because I like to live dangerously. And it's going to read through the VTT files. Now, the VTT file is probably going to need to be converted into text. So let's go ahead and do that. And we're going to actually, do we need to do that? I don't know if we do. Let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens. We're going to go upload to Drive, and let's take each of these little text files, drag them in. It says text files we added from this prompt. Okay, it didn't do that, so we'd have to add that in as change the format to text. Which we've got a few minutes here. I actually wrote a piece of code to do this because I got tired of doing it by hand. So, and so here's our captions. All right, good. Now we've got text files. That was much simpler. We load those text files in. There we go. It will do the analysis of them. I would like to understand what questions Christopher Penn has not been asked in these interviews that are relevant to his field of study, namely data science and AI. And so this is a toy example. You want to spend a little bit more time on these prompts. This is just a
Yeah.
very simple example. But here's what was asked and what did discuss. Here's some general topics that are at least relevant that were not covered in the Q&A. Things like he mentions RNNs, but does not delve into detail, etc. So this is an example of, we did this in 7 minutes of
Yeah.
taking a bunch of YouTube videos, grabbing all the captions, putting them into Gemini, and then saying, here's the questions you could ask as a podcaster that have not been asked. And you could take a
Mm.
little bit more time to find more interviews, maybe find some podcast interviews, get them transcribed, and so on and so forth. This same technique for marketers, by the way, is one of the things that you should be doing with your marketing. Because guess what? How many really good sales podcasts do you know of, Mike?
Sales podcast? That's not
Yeah.
my area. So maybe a couple.
Right. Well, they're out there. There's a couple
Yeah,
of dozen really good sales podcasts, folks like Marcus
I'm sure.
Sheridan, Matt Hines, etc. Go grab the captions from their sales podcasts. Have it build a comprehensive guide to how Marcus Sheridan thinks about sales.
Mm.
Now you've got a blob of knowledge that says this is how Marcus does sales. Guess what? You then take that and say, here's our sales playbook as an organization. Vet it against Marcus's methodologies. Tell me how we could improve our sales. If you're a marketer, go to Andy Crestodina's channel on YouTube, where every interview Andy Crestodina has done. Grab all his stuff, digest it down, or go to his blog, which is amazing. Grab that, digest it down, say, here's Andy's tools, ideas for how to vet a landing page for conversion rate optimization. Here's the HTML for our landing page. Tell me how to improve it using Andy's ideas. Every single piece of content that you have ever come across as a marketer, an ebook, a white paper, a guide, a podcast, an interview, is fodder for an AI tool to create
Mm.
rubrics and scoring mechanisms and analysis of your stuff. So as a marketer, you can sit there and say, well, I've got this email campaign. Who do I know that does amazing email marketing? Grab all their stuff from in public, right? Don't, just use stuff that's publicly out there. They've put on the internet for you to consume, and say, build me an outline, a summary of the way they think, and now vet my content against that. So you can take all the stuff that you should be doing, that you should be doing more
Mm.
with CRO, you should be doing more with email marketing, you should be doing more with SEO, but you don't have time. Take all this knowledge that you have captured for the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years of experts and have AI pretend to be that person and apply it against your stuff, right? That is the smartest thing that you can do with remember, whoever has the most best data wins. If you take the time to accumulate all this data that you have been with by all these conferences you've gone to, by all these podcast interviews you've done, and turn it into tooling that AI can effectively leverage, then you can use the benefits of that. My friend Tamsin Webster wrote an amazing book called Find the Red Thread. She's done a gazillion and a half speeches. I've taken the public speeches, not her book because that's not given away for free, but
Yeah.
the speeches she's done on YouTube that she gives away for free. I just did that down, said, distill the essence of the thread framework. The AI does that. So now I've got my virtual Tamsin. Every time I have something that I want to have legs, say, here's my content, virtual Tamsin. How would you apply the red thread framework to this and make it better? And it says, here's the things that you're missing. Less nicely than Tamsin does, because Tamsin is a wonderful human being. Like, oh, I forgot this and this and this and this. And so I have a virtual Tamsin anytime I want to vet my content. So the people that you look up to, that you admire in marketing, in sales, in whatever discipline, use the publicly given away stuff, and you have that expert on tap whenever you need them.
Wow. What a powerful way to finish. Chris, that was incredibly insightful. Folks, I think you're going to want to go back and listen to that segment several times and really just ingest this tactic and this strategy that Chris just shared. That was fantastic. Chris, for folks who do want to learn more, who want your help, who want to bring you into their organization, where can they go to find you and learn more about you?
The easiest place to find me is at trustinsights.ai. Or if you want the personal version, go to christopherspenn.com. But trustinsights.ai is where you can get our professional help. Call now. Operators are standing by.
Fantastic. That's all we've got today, friends. Thank you, Chris, for being with us. Thank you, all of you, for listening. Please don't forget to find us on Apple, the AI and Marketing Unpacked podcast, and leave us a review. I'd love to know what you think. Until next time. Thanks for joining us on AI and Marketing Unpacked. I hope today's episode has inspired you and given you actionable insights to integrate AI into your marketing strategies. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and consider leaving a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts and answer any questions you might have. Don't forget to join us next time as we continue to simplify AI and help you make a real impact in your marketing efforts. Until then, keep innovating and see just how far AI can take your marketing. Thank you for listening and have a fantastic day.